Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast. My name's Steve, and on this podcast, I discuss each of Andrew McMahon's songs, one per episode. Sometimes I have guests, and sometimes I don't. If you haven't listened before, you can technically listen to this podcast in any order that you want, but we are approaching the 100 songs mark, so you have a lot to go through if you're new around here. One of our guests today and I connected a while back. Phil sent me an email telling me a story about how he and his brother Chris, how they connected with Andrew's music. So very relevant to the show, basically how Andrew's music helped shape, at least in part, our lives, how it's become part of our life soundtracks, if you will. It's been a long time coming, so I appreciate your patience, Phil, but I thought it'd be cool to get both of you guys, Phil and Chris, on the show to talk about just that. And we decided on a song I think they both enjoy. So welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yep.
So can you guys start by telling us a little bit about yourselves?
Something we don't ever really mention, we forget to mention a lot, is that we're brothers. And we're from New Jersey originally. We lived there for 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And now we live in other parts of the country. I live in Florida. Chris lives in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
But we're huge Andrew McMahon fans, so much so that their music inspired us to start a band, and we kind of connected over that. I mean, we're 5 years apart in age. We were never in school together, and we really just connected. We kind of found ourselves by finding Andrew's music.
That's incredible. I love that, and that's kind of the perception I got, Phil, from your email, and that's why I wanted to talk to you guys today. How about you, Chris? Anything to add on to that?
Yeah, that's a great start. I actually always forget as well that we people don't see us as brothers. I know that you see the names on screen, but I think, to his point, we were talking about how we had kind of, discovered Andrew in our own ways, actually. And at first, and I know we'll get into it a little bit, but, at first we thought it was through each other, and then it wasn't. And then we kind of just came to finding his music, and then, finding a new part of our relationship. We kind of grew up 5 years apart, like he mentioned, and we never really had like that like butting heads type of brother and brother hardship. I think because we were so far apart.
Mm-hmm.
So we were more just like general friends, and I think that when we got into the music, it just kept building on that, and it was really easy to work on music, and we both brought like really great strengths that complemented each other, and then of course with everybody else we used to play with. But I think that it just like kind of showed us a new way to connect, and it was really, really cool.
In the fact that you guys live in different states now, but it sounds like you still find time to get together, which we'll talk about one of those reunions with you guys and some friends that you had in the past year. But I'm glad to see that, and that and music's so powerful. I'm not a musician myself. I've never been. I envy those who have the talents. And so when I listen to music, I try to really appreciate what someone can put together themselves, creatively. So really appreciate you guys coming to the show today and sharing your story. Let's go there. So let's talk about the what I like to call lately the Andrew origin story. So Phil, did you find Andrew's music first, or Chris, did you guys both find it independently? How did that work out?
So we did find it independently, which we recently found out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be honest. The first time that I heard Something Corporate, I did not like them.
Okay.
And I'll explain why. My parking spot in school was the second to last parking spot away from the school. And, we lived in New Jersey, and someone, a friend, whoever saw me park and they had a closer parking spot would pick me up and drive me to their parking spot. This very short distance to the front of the parking lot. Whoever it was.
It was like a quarter mile. It was pretty big.
It was pretty far. It was pretty far. But I had this.
I can imagine. We had a pretty long parking lot at my high school, so I'm getting the perspective here. I don't think you're just talking about like the back of the Walmart lot or anything.
Right.
No, it was a lot further than that. In fact, I tracked it. If I walked from our house to my first class, or from my car to my first class, it was about the same distance. So it was almost pointless to drive a car, but with after-school activities, it made it worth it. I remember one really, really cold morning, I got in the car, and I had heard of Something Corporate, but I had never listened or heard their music. I just heard people talking about them. And I got in the car, and my friend, she was there, and she's like, "Oh, do you know this band, Something Corporate?" And she had the album, like the CD of Audio Boxer, on the seat, and I had to like move it to get in. And so I got in, and in that minute and a half of driving to her parking spot from mine, Bad Day was playing.
Okay.
And if you're going to introduce someone to something corporate, I don't recommend that song. But I was
No, I could see that. Yeah.
I was really not into that kind of music at the time. I really didn't like the pop punk scene at all. So at first, I really didn't like it. And a few months later, I remember being at the house and in my parents' house, and I came home from school. I turned on the TV, MTV or whatever was on. We had like a pantry that was downstairs. And so I turned on the TV, I went to the pantry, and I heard this song. I started coming up the stairs and looking. I was like, well, who is that? And it said something corporate, and it was Space. And I was like, oh, like this is not what I heard in the
Hmm.
car that one day.
Pretty different.
It was very different. But then I really didn't have any more connection to something corporate until I went to college. And I was in college for 3 days, and something corporate came to our school on the college tour.
Wow.
And I met a couple people in school that live, dorm rooms or whatever close by, and they said
Hmm.
we joined the student entertainment council. They're looking for volunteers to work the concert. And so I said, "Wow, that's amazing! Like I'm gonna go." And they weren't something corporate fans either, but we ended up doing everything. I mean, we set up the stage. We helped them bring in instruments from like a
Hmm.
van. We were in there during sound check, and I remember like something corporate. They were up there. They were on stage and they were doing something. And Andrew saw me and a buddy just kind of standing there setting something up and knew that we were not part of the regular crew. And he
Hmm.
stopped everything and jumped off the stage and came up to me and was like, "Hey man, I really like your t-shirt." It said, I had a t-shirt that said San Diego on it. Chris and I actually used to live there before we lived in New Jersey.
Okay.
So we got to talking, and one of the members of the band lived in San Clemente, like where we used to live. And he was just really cool. And throughout the day, we just had all kinds of different interactions. But I was in the room for sound check, and pretty much, I mean, the first song they played was Down, and they played Down like 10, 12 times. And I had never heard it before, and it just blew me away. I was just like, I can't
Hmm.
believe that I ignored this band for so long. I mean, it wasn't that, it was like maybe a year, a little bit less. But yeah, then after that, I was just like all in.
So did you go back and like buy the albums or download the music? I know a lot of us were downloading at that time, but like, did you just go collect everything at that point?
So being that we were volunteers that day, they let us go to the merch booth like first. And I
Hmm.
bought North, and I bought Leaving Through the Window,
Oh
the
wow,
t-shirt like on the spot. And
you were hooked in immediately.
yeah, yeah. Like I just was kind of blown away at just how cool Andrew was. And one other thing he did is there was a bunch of people. Obviously, they knew that Something Corp was there that day. It was a Saturday. So they kind of had the building locked down where we were.
Hmm.
There was like kind of rumor that people were sneaking around trying to find them. So they put me as a freshman in college to like guard their green room. And I sat outside of their green room, just like on the floor. And this was before you could like pull up Facebook on your phone and stuff like that. So I was literally just
Hmm.
like sitting there. And yeah, Andrew came out in the hallway and just sat with me and talked to me and thought like maybe I was bored. And, it was just super cool about it. And my girlfriend at the time, she couldn't go to the show. She didn't go to my school and was like only people from the school. She was a huge Something Corporate fan, and he said, "Well, hey, let's just call her." And so I called her on my cell phone. She picked up, and he talked to her, and I was just like, "Man, this is unbelievable. This is so cool." Yeah, ever since then, I was just absolutely hooked.
That's wild because that sounds like things that Andrew does nowadays for fans, and he's been doing that apparently for 20 years, just like hanging out, being cool, being like, "Hey, yeah, let's call your girlfriend and like say hi." That's pretty funny. That's really cool that he did that.
Yeah, and I did
Made
student
an impression
entertainment
apparently.
council. I did the same thing for the whole my whole time in college. No other artist that I saw or met ever did that. Never did anything like that.
Hmm.
There was one who came up and met me and said hi and talked to me for a minute, and that was Brandy Carlisle years and years ago, before she was signed or anything.
Hmm.
No other artist ever came and did that. Was that cool?
That so reminds me of an experience I had in college. I'll tell you a very short story. I've mentioned on the podcast before, I think. I worked the same or volunteered for the same type of organization on my campus at Michigan State University. I think I only did it for a semester, and I just got lucky. I didn't know who Guster was at the time, so very similarly, it was Guster, and I was like, oh, whatever. I did download some of their music ahead of time. I got to know the album that was kind of just coming out was Lost and Gone Forever, so it was probably 1999, I'm gonna guess. And I was listening to it, I was like, this is pretty good. I'm gonna go to the show. And they, funny enough, like what a coincidence, they put me in charge of like protecting the room that they were in. And Guster fans, like especially back then, were not aggressive. They're not gonna. Nobody even asked to go past me because if they would, I probably would have said no. But like I don't know how I would have stopped them. Like again, I'm like a junior in college. I'm a tiny little guy, and but it was just funny. But I didn't really, and I didn't have that same interaction like you did with Andrew or anything. But I did fall in love with Guster as a result of that. So I can kind of relate to your story about a little bit of that. That's pretty cool. How about you, Chris? How did you find either something corporate or Jack's Mannequin or?
First off, Phil, I honestly didn't even know half of that story, so this is somewhat news to me. Your story is way cooler than mine. I did find him when it was something corporate. I originally thought it might have been Phil who told me about them, and as I was digging deep into my brain, I think it might have been like a friend's sister, and she was like 2 years older, and I think she had mentioned Constantine, or maybe it was playing. I was over like their house or something like that, and I was like,
Hmm.
this is cool, and but it was just kind of like in passing. And then, funny enough, I know that they didn't really get too much like radio time, but they were really on a lot of like those MTV and Fuse shows. So similar to Phil,
Okay.
like when Space came out and that music video came out, and I don't know why. Maybe all of those stacked TVs, and there's a scene in that music video where like I guess the mic isn't working, but obviously it's pre-recorded, and he just like laughs, and like Andrew laughs and puts it down. Some reason that like type of weird stuff sticks with me,
Uh-huh.
and I started like kind of getting into them. I didn't really like buy anything yet, but I was kind of getting into them, and I started listening to some of the songs, and I don't know where or how. Either it was maybe Phil's albums that he picked up, or maybe I burned, or who knows, maybe LimeWire.
That's how I got Andrew's music initially, all of his music, yeah, up until North.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then it didn't really like I was a piano player, and I don't know, when you're a kid, and I was decently young. I think I was in middle school. It wasn't clicking that I played piano and I could play his music. And a buddy of mine
Hmm.
who also played piano, we were just hanging out one day, and he was like, "Hey, like I want to like show you something, like that's something corporate song, Hurricane. Like I know the middle part." And so he showed it to me, and I don't know. Ever since that moment, I was like, "Oh, like this is the coolest thing. Like, why didn't I ever think to like play this kind of stuff?" And it just kind of opened up everything at that point. And then I was like, I need to listen, I need to learn, and really from there, like that's pretty much all it was. So
Interestingly, I played organ growing up, and I think I can relate to a little bit of what you said at the beginning, that like when you first it dawned on you that you could play that because I never had that moment. So I took organ lessons growing up, and it never dawned on me that I could play modern music. I mean, there was a
right,
moment
yeah,
ska got popular in the mid '90s, and my friend was like, "Hey, we could have an organ player in our ska band," and it was just like a very much in passing. Nothing ever came of it, and I was not talented enough to do it anyway. But it didn't occur to me that like because the teacher I had, it was very like old style organ on my old style organ.
yeah,
And so that's interesting you say that because yeah, I didn't connect the dots, but I'm glad that you did. I'm glad that someone helped you connect that
yeah.
you could sit down and play music that you love on that instrument.
Yeah, it was super cool. And honestly, at the time, I was kind of like getting bored of piano. I was forcing myself to practice. My parents were forcing me to practice. And then it was like, all right, now the issue was I didn't want to practice the stuff I was assigned. I wanted to just like learn, the newer stuff, or try to find
Yeah.
other piano parts in music that I liked. So yeah, I don't know. It was kind of just like a little overall awakening, and then I was just kind of caught into it and loved it ever since.
And just to get into, you guys had a band you mentioned at the top where in at least in part Andrew's music inspired you to start a band together. So, Phil, did you were you already playing guitar when you went to college? Was this already a thing or did you just pick up the guitar after this point?
Yeah, so I took classical lessons
Mhm.
all through high school. And I don't know, I thought I was doing some like really great thing, like I'm going to be this great guitar player if I take these classical lessons. But it was very focused on just reading music. So I didn't learn anything of like modern day music.
Mhm.
And when I went to college, I mean, I didn't even know how to read like tabs. Like that's what people do is they read tabs or they play
Mhm.
power chords, like they play the Blink 182 songs and Green Day and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
I knew nothing of that.
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys that worked that something corporate show with me were like metal guys.
Mhm.
And I'm still friends with them today. I learned a lot from them, but like once they taught me kind of like the missing pieces of what I didn't know, then I just went. It,
Mhm.
it was it was incredible. I mean, I remember being in school and I was one of the few kids that had a printer, but like I was only printing tabs and like memorizing just tons and tons of music, just playing everything I could. It was unbelievable.
How did you guys you're in college and then Chris at the time you're in high school, I assume. How did you guys put this band together? Like how did that all come to fruition?
Well, if freshman year of college, I was actually in eighth grade, so we really never shared like a school at all together. But we just like kind of, I feel like we were just trying stuff out, and we didn't do that much guitar, piano stuff. We kind of just somewhere along the lines, and Phil, you might know better than me, of like picked up a bass. Our family had a very old mandolin that's like over 100 years old, and we probably shouldn't have been playing it. But like we started just kind of messing around with stuff and it wasn't really much rock. It was like from what I remember, like Dispatch and Jack Johnson and Phil. I think yesterday you mentioned Tonic. And it was just kind of like if one of us learned a song, we would then try to bring it over to the other one and be like, hey, like I learned this. Do we want to try it? It might be cool.
And you started playing it together.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and we kind of started playing together like when I was in high school and he was in middle school, and just without any kind of direction, really.
yeah.
Just like, hey, pick this up. Let's try this song. Let's see
Hmm.
if we can make this work. And we were just playing whatever.
Hmm.
There wasn't, and most of it wasn't piano and guitar based. It was just some kind of weird array of us trying to find ourselves.
Interesting.
Whatever song that we could figure out how to play, that's what we did. But like you said, it was Jack Johnson. I mean, if there was anything that was like acoustic, we would try to figure that out pretty
Hmm.
much because we didn't have a whole lot of equipment or anything like that. So we were used to playing songs together and playing music together. And then it was kind of a long time after we discovered something corporate and everything that we were like, we need to figure out how to like put a band together because we were playing those songs just us by ourselves. Eventually we started writing our own songs.
Hmm.
And we were like, well, the only way we're going to get these out there is like we need to start finding people. And then like Chris brought in Dave one day and he can, talk about that. But that's kind of how it went. Like we were just doing this music and this kind of like mess of just having fun and messing around. And then it
Hmm.
was like all of a sudden we started playing something corporate songs together and like, wow, this is different. This is something like we're actually doing something that we enjoy and like and now we've taken that same kind of formula and started writing our own stuff.
So once you heard Andrew's music and you can kind of connect with that, Chris, you said you kind of learned a little bit about Hurricane from your friend, and were you guys actually playing Andrew music at that point?
Probably, honestly, once I learned that little riff, I was probably like, "Hey, Phil, do you know the song Hurricane on guitar?"
Uh
And
huh.
whether or not he did, I assume that's kind of what we first put together. If
Okay.
I had, that's my best assumption. But yeah, I think once we started playing it, it kind of just opened up like how we should be going about playing other music and approaching other songs and what is actually sounding good and balanced. And I don't know. I guess probably also because. I wasn't really good at, playing 100-year-old mandolin, So I
Hmm.
think playing an instrument that maybe I was a little bit more familiar with was definitely helped with that.
Yeah.
And, at the same time, bands like Reliant K were coming out and they were piano driven and
Hmm.
then, the fray got very big around that time too. And we didn't really play too much fray. It was just that our way of being able to look at music was a little bit differently. So I think it was just able to help us piece it together. And then, Phil mentioned Dave, who was our drummer, and him and I had connected when I did eventually get to high school, and he was very much into something corporate and Reliant K, and it's just like, hey, like I just, I want to do the same thing. Like I just want to jam, and
Hmm.
like he was like serious about it, and that just kind of went from there. And then him and Phil vibed really well, and we just kind of took off.
And something you said, when you first reached out a few months back, Phil, I pulled this quote from the message. You said, without me having that conversation with Andrew, none of this would have ever happened. So you kind of, it seems like you felt that that was kind of a moment for you, an inspiration for making music. You guys went on to record some music, play some shows. I mean, this turned into a thing.
Yeah.
It did for a minute. It was we were pretty active for 5 years or so.
Okay, wow,
Um,
that's even longer than I thought.
It was pretty much my identity in high school, to be honest.
Yeah.
And we had a good little group of people who supported us, and through playing local shows. And yeah, it was good. We think that we did. I think once, a lot of the group members were around my age, and when we eventually hit college, then that's when we all got a little bit further apart.
Hmm.
And to some degree, I think a lot of credit goes to Phil for making time for it when he was in college, but it was much more harder to coordinate when everyone was kind of 45 minutes, hour and a half, 2 hours away from each other. And I think that, we kept it going for a little bit, but it just kind of dwindled out a little bit around that point. But yeah, it was about 5 years of pretty steady jamming and trying to record and writing and rewriting and all that stuff.
So I looked up your music on Spotify, and I was able to listen to a few songs. So gotta say, I really enjoyed it. I've been listening to it. I made a playlist of the songs that are on there, and I've been listening to them a lot these last couple days since I've known about them. And what a trip! Like I really like it. Alive really stuck out to me. So Alive is a great song. I definitely hear the influence of not just something corporate either, but other bands in that era. Another one I'll throw out is were you guys fans of Stray Light Run?
Oh,
oh
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, like I definitely
huge.
hear that. Like that's what even more so than something corporate. That's what I would say. Sounds like an influence anyway in that song, and that's probably why I love it so much. It's yeah,
Yeah.
but it's some great melodies, and the way you guys put together all the instruments. I mean that takes a lot. Like I give Andrew credit all the time on this show. I'll give you guys credit now. Like to put a piano and a bass and drums and guitar together and do what you guys did. That was pretty impressive. The sound is great too. Like your recordings, you guys have some good sound. Did you had do that in a professional studio?
Alive was recorded in, I would say, a semi-professional studio.
Uh huh.
We weren't on a label, but we worked with a label and
Mm-hmm.
we had a management company, and we pretty much did everything through them for a very long time. But the last like 3 years of that band, we did things for them, and it was kind of like a positive and a negative because we kind of let some other things slide that maybe we should have paid attention to,
Okay.
because we were so focused on this group. They were really invested in us, and we were really invested in them. And they were a new label, and they could only fit. They only had like two bands on the label at the time, and they're like, we just don't have room, but we want to work with you, type of thing. But they put us in touch with a Silent Owl studio, which is Pine Island, New York. It's out in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But John Kalura from the Ataris, it was his studio when he wasn't with the Ataris.
Okay.
So that song he actually produced. We went and recorded in his studio, and he did change. I mean, at probably not so much on the piano side of it, but I know on like my side of it, because he's a guitar player. On the guitar side, he changed a lot in the production of it to
Oh,
make it
okay.
much better.
Like the sound
Which
of it, or the actual what happens on the guitar.
kind of just the way you play it, and he just kind of showed me some pointers on. I know you probably know this, but like Andrew has talked about like he's gone to punk shows and people say, oh, you're not a punk rocker, and he's like, yeah, I know, type of thing.
Uh-huh.
It was kind of the same for us. Like he kind of told me, he's like, this isn't a punk song, don't play it like a punk song. I was like, okay, and he just made some suggestions, and I mean, it really changed the way I play it. It wasn't really that different, but it was really, really great to have someone like him to work with,
That's so cool.
especially on that song. Because I remember when Chris showed me that song, like the very first night, and how it just clicked for us.
Yeah.
It was dark. He was sitting at the same piano, and I picked up a guitar, and I was like, "What is this?" And he was just like, "Let me show you this real quick." I was like, "Wow, it's really good. What's the third and what's the fifth?" And he told me, and then like we had it. We took it to practice like 2 days later.
Mhm.
That's so cool. It's got to be quite a bonding experience for two brothers to be able to do that. So I really wanted to hear about that. I was genuinely curious about how this came together, and just based on what Phil had told me in the message, and we kind of chatted again. And hearing Chris's side, it's neat to kind of put these pieces together. So thank you guys. Let's get into this song we're going to talk about today. So we are talking about a Jack's Mannequin song, believe it or not. We've mentioned the word something corporate a lot in this beginning, but that's okay. I mean, this all of this led to where Andrew went next, as we all know. We'll come back around to it as the episode goes on. I'll just share kind of my story about how I originally came across the song we're talking about today. I bought The Glass Passenger on iTunes, and so that was kind of the way most people were getting music at that time. It was 2008. But that album, the EPs that followed The Glass Passenger, everything Andrew from that point were basically legal MP3s for the next few years before we got into that streaming era. So, but here's the weird thing. So I bought it on iTunes, and I swear to you, the song we're talking about today was not in that collection of music. Now, I bought the CD, The Glass Passenger, just a few years ago, like 5 or 6 years ago now. And it's on there. It's technically called a bonus track. The song we're talking about today is Miss California, and it's technically the bonus track on The Glass Passenger, but I'm pretty certain it wasn't on the iTunes version. Either that or somehow I never got it. How did you guys originally find this song?
Wow, that's actually really funny. We were just talking about the sound, and I know we'll dig into that.
Uh-huh.
But now I don't know. But we were literally just talking like it kind of sounds like a bonus track. And
Like a B-side or like something extra, right? Because it technically has an asterisk and says bonus track on the end of it. Yeah.
I did never
Weird.
picked up on that. I thought I knew where I first heard it because I know where I heard the album and I bought this one. My drummer or our drummer Dave at the time we were still we're still in for Normandy, and some reason my high school friends were getting into some shenanigans at night, and we did like a little camp out, backyard camp thing at my house. And Dave was I think maybe interested in one of our friends or whatever, but he knew them, and he came over and hung out with us. And the very next day we knew that this was coming out. And so him and I woke up like really early,
Hmm.
and he had this really old like Oldsmobile car that didn't make any sense, but it was awesome. And so we went over to what used to be Coconuts, which I guess turned into FYE, and we bought the album. And at like 8 in the morning, we drove back to my house and just sat in
Nice.
his car for an hour and listened to the whole thing. And I thought that's probably where I had heard it
Yeah.
if
No,
it's on there.
yeah, so my understanding from Wikipedia, okay, so what that's worth, but that pulls from other articles, is
Yeah.
that Miss California was on every copy of the CD. Is my under
Okay.
is the way it's put on there, which
Okay.
I didn't have. I didn't have the CD. I had the iTunes MP3, so that must be where I
Yeah.
missed out somehow.
Got it. Yeah, because I always remember that being on there,
Yeah.
and now maybe that's why. Just because at the time I didn't, I don't even know if I had iTunes at the time. Maybe I did, but yeah, I bought the physical, so it was always ripped on there.
Chris, that reminds me of time and places in my life. I miss that whole idea. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. It's like we have to
No.
get up early to drive to the store to get the album, like to hear it, you know?
Yeah.
What a time and place.
Well, we were the end of the era, right? Like they used to do
Yeah.
that with the vinyls and stuff, and
Yeah.
now that everything went streaming, what can we say?
Yeah.
But
Now you just got to wait till midnight when it's dropped.
yeah, I guess so.
Listen at home on your phone. How about you, Phil? Do you remember hearing this song or?
Yes, I don't remember if I stole Chris's CD or if I bought it for myself. I mean, I think I bought it for myself. I think he told me that it was out, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go buy it, and I got it. And I had to drive somewhere. I don't remember exactly where. And I remember I just put it in my car and just listened to the whole thing. And I remember hearing it like and could like the way that my CD player worked. I mean, there was a lot of different ones, but it would just like play back to the beginning once you finish the last song. So like I heard it and I was like, that was weird. Was that the first song or was that the last song? And then was it is it spinning or crashing comes on like first? And
I think
Crashing,
it's
I
crashing.
think.
I think it's
crashing.
crashing. Yeah.
So then crashing came back on. I was like, no, that was the last song. I was like, that was pretty cool. So I just remember being in my car driving and hearing it
Hmm.
because I just got the album, put it in, and just listened to it beginning to end.
The interesting thing, at least from my perspective, being a longtime Andrew fan, is it's one of those, and I've said this before on the show. There's a couple songs that I somehow missed early on. That would be one of them. So I didn't hear it with everyone else somehow. I never saw it as a part of that album. Again, I bought the CD. I think it was in 2020. Actually, I was kind of collecting all the CDs that I hadn't yet accumulated from Andrew McMahon. And that's how I, finally, and I probably heard it on streaming up to that point at some point, but I never really, again, just took it as a part of this album until I put the CD on, which I do occasionally. I still put a CD on occasion. It's just interesting how that's why I always ask like how you first found the song, if you can remember. Not everybody remembers, and I don't always remember it either. I don't know exactly when I first heard this song. I just know that I didn't hear it with the album, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I
Mm-hmm.
think that totally makes sense. There were a couple bonus tracks, and I don't remember which album it was. It might have been People and Things, but like my buddies bought it on iTunes, and I think Andrew released like three songs, and he was like, I really like that song, and I don't even know the name of it because I've only heard it like twice, but it's like Spinning with a Gun or something like that,
Dancing with
and
a Gun.
Dancing with a Gun, and I was like, I don't know what that song is, and I was like the biggest Andrew fan. He was like, how do you not know what this is? And I think that every now and then things were released differently
Yeah,
back then. So I definitely know what you're talking about because there's still a couple that are out in the realm
totally.
somehow that I haven't really related to.
Someone came on the show a couple years ago. We've since become friends, and she was telling me about this song "Out of It," and I didn't know the song at all. That's another one I'd put in the same category. I completely missed it. Well, apparently you had to buy the CD at Best Buy to get the version with "Out of It" on it, which is how
Whoa.
I never came across it. And it's not on streaming. I don't think. I don't believe it's on streaming, but you can find it on YouTube, of course. But I'm not the kind of person who like I'm not going to put together a YouTube playlist just to have all of the songs, like
Right.
it's got
Right.
to be kind of all in one cohesive place on an album, part of an album, or on a playlist on a convenient place like Spotify or something. So,
Yeah, I'm the same way. And honestly, that song is news to me. So I'm gonna write that down
yeah.
and I'm gonna check it out.
Oh, some fans absolutely adore that song. It's still kind of a new one to me, honestly, in the last 3-4 years.
Okay.
So, yeah. I did eventually find that CD version with Out of It on it, interestingly. So, it exists. It's out there. It was a Best Buy only edition. So,
Got it.
if I don't know if people still buy music at Best Buy, I don't think so, but we did back then.
We did. Yeah.
The song we're talking about today, Miss California, is track 14 technically on The Glass Passenger, which the album was released on September 30th, 2008. Now, Phil, when we were chatting back and forth about songs to talk about, there was a few ideas that we threw about, and one was a newer song, and then you mentioned this song. And there was a song that I've covered before. You guys, I think you guys are big fans of the song Break Myself Like I Am by Something Corporate. I covered that several years ago. There was a short list, but this was on it. So why this song, guys? Like what is special in general about this song to talk about today?
So we both just really liked this song. We really connected with it. I don't really understand why it's. I mean, now that we know that it was a bonus track, like it makes a lot more sense. But I kind of thought that this song like probably fit earlier in the album than as a bonus track, and I don't know if like maybe it would have gotten more attention then,
Hmm.
but it just seems like there's, it's just a song that people like don't really talk about, and I think it kind of gets lost amongst like all of the different names like American Love and Suicide Blonde and you know all of those type of songs and
More unique sounding or kind of hit you in the face type of names. I get that. Yeah.
yeah, and I to me it sounds like another Jack's Mannequin song, you know what I mean, and but
Hmm.
just as good as all the others, nothing that really stands out as being super different. I really like kind of the last chorus though, that
Hmm.
it's just like really big boomy, you know, Miss California, he like says it a bunch of times and repeats like I'll be around, and it's like you almost hear like a bell off in the distance to it,
Mm.
and it just like really kind of brought me into
Hmm.
almost in a way that like Dark Blue kind of brings you in. Like it was just like so intriguing.
Okay. Interesting. How about you, Chris?
Obviously, I kind of knew the name like off the bat, and being such a big Something Corporate fan, I know that there's some correlation that, on the sophomore album of Something Corporate, they have Miss America, and then on the sophomore album of Jack's Mannequin, it's Miss California. And I just feel like that there was intention behind that.
Huh.
And then it's such a different song than Miss America, or even when
Definitely.
you look at some of like the very last songs on any of the other albums. And it was brighter than the other ones. I felt like, you have like Globes and Maps and Miss America and Into the Airwaves, I guess, kind of is upbeat. But this was a little bit different, and I just loved the breadth that it gave to the guitar, honestly. Like
Okay.
you know that Bobby's kind of behind, he's definitely an amazing guitarist, and he's throwing some great rhythms in there, but sometimes with everything else going on, I just felt like some of that rhythm really came out in this, and he hits these just like small little chord adjustments that just like ring off really well. I think the things that Andrew does in the very beginning with like the piano just kind of echoing very lightly on single notes. And then to Phil's point, like the outro where it's just like this big, I don't know, these big hits, and he could have stopped it early. The outro's kind of long, and I
Yeah,
just love
it
that
is.
he just keeps rolling with it. And it's just like, I'll be around, and then he just keeps, hitting those higher vocal notes. And yeah, I don't know. It kind of just puts you in a good mood. And it's not one that, I know we'll get into lyrics. I feel
Yeah.
like it's not one that he tries to get in overly poetically, but it's just something that somehow still resonates, and it's somewhat lighthearted and fun.
There's so much to unpack about what you guys just said. You guys just said so much, which is awesome. And but the one thing I'll say in response is, I almost started laughing, Chris, when you pointed something out that just, I guess it seems obvious, but it was never maybe obvious to me. You said, well, Miss California was on their the sophomore Jack's Mannequin album, final track on the sophomore album. Miss America was the final track on the sophomore album for Something Corporate. Never put that together. And yeah, that's a good point. Maybe there is some correlation that I'm not aware of there. I was thinking of the title of Miss California more in terms of like all the female name songs that Jack's Mannequin has, and like, is this a
Oh, okay.
female name song? I don't know. I don't know if that's like Amelia and Annie and Amy and Doris Day is another B side, and things like that. I don't know if I'd put that in that collection or not. So I have a few production notes here. We're going to come back to the subject that we talked about already just a little bit, but I want to touch on this because I do want your perspectives, definitely based upon something I heard you guys say. So I've talked about the song Caves on this show before with somebody. And Bailey and I, a couple of years ago, both agreed that Caves feels like a final track on the album. And it's
Hmm.
interesting, Chris, that you said this kind of sounds like bright and shinier than his typical final tracks. And that's what's so jarring to me about the placement of this song. And Phil, I heard you say earlier that it feels like it should be earlier in the album, and I 100% agree with that. Because you go from Caves and it feels like this like dark ending, and then the bright, you know, piano notes and jangly guitar of Miss California kicks in. Not to get too far along into the sound, but just like, do you guys have any opinions on this as an album closer versus, I guess the regular, if you will, track list said that Caves was the final song. This was a bonus song. I don't really get why that's a thing if it was always on there. But do you guys have any opinions on this being the final track versus Caves?
I mean, personally, I think that it like Cave should have been the final track. That's just me though.
Yeah.
If you look at everything in transit and like, Into the Airwaves is the last song, it was kind of like you had this down and you even had like the little point where Andrew's talking and saying like this is the end of the record, and then we go into another song, and like it's almost like, all right, we're gonna climb another hill. Like we just went up and down and like hiked, and like now we're just gonna just start hiking again. I don't know if it's like if it's like that, like, hey, there's more to come. This is what it is, but I think it should have been earlier in the album. I think if it ended on Caves, it would have been just fine.
There's two things. I think it's perfect, to be honest. I think I like it right at the end. I think it's when you look at everything in transit, you do have MFEO, and then you have it Into the Airwaves. You have this big grand production, and then you have Into the Airwaves. And I don't know how much I grabbed. I think I like this setup a little bit more than that, but I think it continues that where you have this big production, and then you almost have this like encore to the album.
An encore performance. Okay.
Like you can always stop it if you don't, but I get that, like, it's in the order. I mean, now you can make a playlist if you wanted to, but
Yeah.
I love that. But I also just can't, some reason it clicked with me about the Miss California, Miss America thing, and I can't get that out of my mind as much. I feel like that's just too kind of perfect. I feel like it was too intentional, and I feel like in that case, that's just kind of how it was meant to be.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I see it. Like Caves is this beautiful thing, and it's like, you know what? I wrote you a beautiful song. I don't want to leave you here. I want to bring you Miss California, which is just kind of like, maybe you're going through something and you can relate to Caves, but you still have to get on with the rest of your day. And so here's something that's going to pick you back up, and you can continue to go.
Send
so
you on
that's
your
kind of
way.
how I see it. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. I mean, this isn't the end, right? I heard you guys both say this isn't the end. There's something else, and then you get this epilogue, so to speak, afterward. I like it. The only thing officially I could find that Andrew stated about Miss California, there isn't much out there, of course, about him talking about this song, but there's a little bit. He did explain while making Miss California, he was not that impressed with it at first, but by the time it came to be all mixed and ready for the album, he actually really enjoyed it. And then he just kind of threw it on the end of the album as a bonus track, I'm doing air quotes, as a bonus track to not disrupt the sequencing. So he felt like, I'm going to interpret that. This next part isn't his words at all. I guess, hey, it's a 13-track album. This makes sense beginning to end, but then I don't want to leave this song behind. So I'm also going to put this on the end. So Chris, kind of like what you said, kind of an epilogue, like there's the story, and then here's the aftermath. So The Glass Passenger was originally recorded in late 07 and early 08. It was produced by Andrew himself and Jim Wirt. And the release of this album, I had kind of forgotten about this. I didn't know it at the time. I've learned it since doing this podcast. But the release was pushed back a couple of times. So I'm not aware of when this particular song was recorded in that process, if it was like late in the recording process or anything like that. I'm not aware. Just a few, instrumental things here. Andrew sings and plays piano and keyboards. Bobby plays guitar and does backing vocals on the track. John Sullivan, their bassist at the time, played the bass. And Jay McMillan on the drums. You have Patrick Warren on the keys and the Chamberlin, and C.J. Erickson on programming. So yeah, that's just a little bit about the recording that we know. Let's talk about live shows. So according to Setlist FM, the song's been played live only 20 times as Jack's Mannequin. So really not that many in comparison to a lot of Jack songs that we know. They've also played it 9 more times as Andrew McMahon, solo or with the Wilderness. Interestingly, they did play it in Richmond, Virginia in June, and in Kansas City. And then I sent you guys a link. I didn't know if you guys had a chance to. I don't think you had a chance to watch it, but they actually played it in the sound check in Pittsburgh, which is ironic because I was at the Pittsburgh show, but not at the sound check. So, but that video exists on YouTube. So
Okay.
I did get to watch it. I did get to see that. I did get to experience it live. So the last time I think they've played it is in Pittsburgh in June, and that's technically on YouTube for us. So interestingly, the last time before this year, 2025, the last time before 2025 it had ever been played was in 2015. So it was off the set lists
Wow.
officially for 10 years. 10 years without Miss California.
Wow.
So speaking of Jack's shows, did you guys get a chance to go to any Jack shows earlier this year? Year?
They're coming to my area. They're playing Atlanta and St. Petersburg, Florida, and Orlando
Mm-hmm.
in just a couple weeks, the Halloween weekend. All those places are like 6 hours away, and we
Oh
ended up
gosh.
having a family event that came up. So I was going to go to one of those shows. I didn't know which one,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to be able to swing it this time, unfortunately.
That's too bad. How
Yeah.
about you, Chris? Did you get a chance to go to the Virginia show by any chance?
I did not, and the reason I didn't is because my friends from New Jersey just booked 4 tickets for the Red Rock show, so I was able to see that.
Oh, okay.
So, I know it was like kind of Jack's, but really it was like kind of like the offshoot of their tour. So yeah, so I'm just kind of still coming off of that high from a few
Oh,
weeks
for
ago
sure.
of seeing them at Red Rocks, and that was my first Red Rock show. So yeah, it was a very cool experience. Yeah.
So did you enjoy seeing the different, kind of the different eras all presented on one stage? Going from, they opened with Jack's Mannequin, right? From my memory.
Yeah, which I did think was interesting.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that though because I feel like I personally expected them to start with Soko,
Mm-hmm. Same.
and I just felt like there was a little switch up there, you know?
Yeah. Is an interesting choice. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the purpose or the cause was. Maybe it's because that's the tour they were on. It just felt natural to have that be the quote
Sure.
unquote opener. Whereas, and then something corporate and then the Wilderness, which I think Wilderness was last. I'm going from memory here. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, but maybe Wilderness was last, if they were last, in fact, because they hadn't played together in a while. I don't know. I'm spitballing here. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. I'm glad you got to go to that. That sounds like quite an epic experience. I have a lot of friends I've met in the fan base in the last few years that were able to get out there. I had to opt to skip that one. I had to cut myself off somewhere. So
I hear that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was fortunate to get to the Pittsburgh show, and I'll see a couple of the shows actually next month. Wow, I can't believe it, in just a few weeks here.
Okay.
Fortunately, he almost always comes to Ohio. So where I live, I'm usually within a couple of hours of at least one of his shows. We're very lucky here. Phil, I feel badly for you, man. Like, he does 2 dates in Florida, one in Atlanta, and it's all still 6 hours away for you?
Yes, I live in Pensacola, so I'm like right next to Alabama, kind of surrounded by Alabama.
Okay, so
Um,
just about Alabama. I mean,
yeah,
for
yeah,
all intents
just
and purposes.
yeah, pretty much. I could, I mean, honestly, I could probably get to Nashville in just about the same amount of time as I can get to Orlando or St. Pete or
Wow.
Atlanta. Pretty much the closest to go. Well, the closest I've ever seen Andrew was in Birmingham, Alabama.
And he doesn't come there often, right?
No, it was the New Friends tour, and yeah, he said he was playing in Birmingham, and I was like, okay, well, I can swing that. That's
Yeah.
easy. So
Now, Chris, are you closer to DC area or Richmond, or not even close, or are you on the ocean?
I actually have a similar problem to Phil. I'm actually in Roanoke. So
Oh yeah.
I've seen Andrew in Richmond proper when he was doing the Wilderness tour. And then I did see when he was touring, he was headlining with Dashboard. They were like just a little bit north of Richmond.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of hikes, Other than that, I guess I could go to DC if I really had to, but that's a good 4 hours for me.
Yeah, and DC is not easy to get in and out of, so I know that personal
No.
experience.
Yeah,
I lived in the
I'd much
DC
rather
area for a
Richmond.
few years, so
Okay.
I was in Maryland.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
It's been a few
Yeah.
years, but interestingly, going back to the song itself in the live setting, I found a pretty cool piece of Andrew McMahon history out there on YouTube if anybody's interested. Someone posted a live version of the song from October 2008, so just a week after the album came out. It's at the Viper Room in Los Angeles, which was, according to the YouTube video, a secret show. And according to Setlist FM, if you look at Setlist FM, this time they played it wasn't even listed on there. So someone needs to add that. But this seems to be the first time they ever played Miss California, which is why I'd call it a piece of Jack's Mannequin history. So So maybe they played it 21 times instead of 20 I said earlier. Who knows? But anyway, I'll put that link in the show notes for anybody listening that wants to check that out. I thought it was pretty cool. But I've never seen this song live before, so if you guys were able to watch a Jack's Mannequin show, is this a song that you'd want to see? Is this a song that you'd be like, I hope Miss California makes the set list tonight?
I definitely think I'd be really excited if it came on. I mean, it's not something that I try not to go to shows with like expectations of like making a list. I hope they play all these songs. There's usually like, I know the songs are going to play, and then I pick like maybe one or two that I'm like really interested in. But I thought for a long time, I had to go back and look at like all the Jack's Mannequin shows I've been to. I thought that I'd heard them play it. And when I went back and looked at all the set lists, I had not. And I was kind of surprised because I remember one particular show that I really thought that they played it at that show, and they did not.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident I have not seen it. I'm almost 100% confident I've not seen this live.
I don't think I've seen this live. My memory isn't so great and I've seen him plenty of times, and at this point it's kind of blurring what band he was with way back in the day when I did see him in some of those times. So if I was a betting man based on Setlist FM, I would assume I have not.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of like you, Chris. I don't remember usually specific set lists from there are points in time, there are very specific memories I have from concerts, but it's not like I can rattle off a set list of that time in 2014, here's what he played, not unless I'm looking at a set list. So
Yep, same.
These days I've tried to take like short video clips just so that I have a memory of what it sounded like, and B, just a couple of the songs that they played in case I forget it one day.
Yeah.
So,
no, I'm totally the same way. There's usually like a couple of short ones, a few lines that I know are going to come up.
Yeah.
And then maybe one long one.
Yeah,
and
same. That's me too. Now, I'm going to tangent for just a second here. Going back to For Normandy, your band. So, did you guys said you played a lot of shows in the area. I saw the video of you guys playing at Starland Ballroom in New Jersey, which coincidentally I've been to that venue. I've seen a show there. In 2000, it was 2008. Made my way out there. It was very random, longer story that I'll skip. But like, did you guys book your own shows, or was like there's somebody booking for you in the management that you talked about, or the record label, or like how did you put together this, organize this thing while you guys were in high school and college?
That particular show, because we played Starland several times, but that particular one was a battle for Warped Tour, I think it was. So like you could win a spot on Warped Tour if you won this Battle of the Bands.
Oh, okay.
It was through the label, like they were a sponsor of it, and it was through the management company essentially, and through somebody else. I don't remember who else it was. I think it was a local studio or something. Yeah, basically through our management company, like they asked us to play that show. So that's kind of how we got. And every time we played Starland, it was through them. They booked that for us.
Yeah.
There was like, we had the opportunity to play Crocodile Rock, and we were supposed to be opening for a band that was coming through, and we ended up getting kicked out.
Oh no!
Because two of the band members weren't 18, and we didn't know that you had to be 18 to play, and we got really mad about the whole thing, and we just left. There was a festival we played one time where there was some bigger names on it. I want to say it was like the AKAs or something like that went through.
Okay.
Then that was called Get Loud Fest. Again, that was through the management company. They booked that. We did book a couple things on our own, but for the most part, most of our shows were booked through the management company.
So being that the state of the scene and kind of, you referenced this earlier, Phil, that, Andrew never felt punk enough because he felt like he was a piano player that, had guitar in his music. But being the scene as it was, like a lot of that was considered pop punk or pop punk adjacent at the time. Did you guys find yourself in that circle? Like when you'd play with these bands, it sounds like you were playing with those kind of bands though, right?
Actually, I mean, there was a couple. There was like 3 or 4 that we really, really knew well and liked.
Okay.
For the most part, at that point, that whole pop punk thing was kind of over by the time we came through.
Okay.
And we found ourselves playing with like a lot of screamo type bands.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, when they saw us come with the keyboard, I remember getting laughed at a few times, like unloading the van and But usually afterwards, everything was cool. Like after we played everything, but at first, it was a bit of a fans that came to see us didn't want to go see the other bands, and then fans that went to go see other bands didn't really want to see us type of thing that we ran into a lot. I
Yeah.
I felt like, especially if we booked our own type of show.
It's interesting, and you may have heard this from Andrew before as well. Like he said the same thing about playing Warp Tour in '02. Like the screamo fans and the hardcore fans were like, "What is this guy doing with a piano? What are they doing here at Warp Tour?" So that's funny you say that.
Yeah, well, and I think, he was kind of already out there, right?
Hmm.
So I think that, those types of bands had paved the way a little bit. So,
Hmm.
we there was kind of that divide where the people who wanted to go a little bit harder than punk rock and the people who wanted to go a little bit lighter. So,
Hmm.
like you said, it was always kind of like decently cool. I never felt like, specifically as like the piano player, I never felt like out of place. And I
Okay.
felt like some people were like, oh, like they're kind of curious about this because there are so few pianos in the venue right now across some of these bands. And so yeah, but yeah, the people who were definitely there to like headbang were probably like gonna go get some water or beer if they were old enough or whatever, you know?
Yeah. When you guys are, yeah, no, I can understand. Yeah, I guess you guys make a good point that the way was already paved just a little bit, and people were all kind of used to the idea that there can be different instruments in punk, pop punk, in adjacent type of genre. So you had
Yeah.
bands like you referenced Reliant K earlier. We've talked a lot about Something Corporate, of course, Jack's Mannequin. The Rocket Summer is a band that I've
Yeah.
gotten into in more recent years. I didn't even know that who they were back in those days, but kind of just found them more recently. Was introduced
Oh
to them.
yeah.
I'm seeing them tomorrow night. I'm seeing the Rocket Summer tomorrow night, actually, locally here in Columbus. So
Oh nice.
yeah,
Okay.
Nice.
pretty pumped. The Hello Good Friend tour, 20-year anniversary tour, I should say.
I'd never thought of us as sounding kind of like Straight Light Run, but Existentialism on prom night was like the song that him and I like used to play nonstop. Like, so I'm thrilled that you said that earlier
Oh yeah,
'cause I think that's
that's
so
the sound
cool.
I thought of when I heard at least mainly the two. The Breeze, and I don't know if it was The Breeze or Alive. One of those two, if not both, kind of gave me that sense. I was like, okay, this. I hear Straight Light Run a little bit influence here.
Yeah, and I connect with them so much. I used to listen to them a lot, and I feel like they were never really nearly as popular. And so like whenever I would talk to somebody, they would maybe know that song, but
Yeah,
like the rest of it, not really. And I feel like they were so underappreciated.
yeah. You talk to Andrew fans, and you're much more likely to find people who know Straight Light Run well. But
Mm.
outside of that, that subgenre, I feel like yeah, they weren't. They didn't. They really never broke out to other fandoms, if you will. I don't much. If
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
because yeah, it was a little bit lighter. It was. I mean, you can call it emo if you want, I guess.
yeah. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, but so they kind of fit. They could fit in that box, but they didn't really fit in the pop punk box. And I don't know if they ever played Warp Tour. They're actually playing When We Were Young festival, which is kind of like the modern day Warp Tour in
Yeah, it
Vegas
kind of is. Yeah.
next week. So and I know that I remember that because I have a friend who's gone the last 3 years, and he's ironically not going this year. But he's like, that's the reason I would go this year because he's a huge Straight Light Run fan.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
and again, I know this guy because of the Andrew McMahon fandom, so like that
Yeah.
makes sense. In my normal circles outside of the fandom, like yeah, no one knows who Straight Light Run is.
Yeah, I used to have one of their shirts and I used to wear it like really proudly
Yeah,
because that's so funny.
I saw them open the second time I saw Something Corporate. The first time I was at Warp Tour. Second time was in '05. I'm willing to bet it's the same tour or around the same time frame as your brother saw that Something Corporate at his college.
Mm.
Straight Light Run opened for them at the Detroit show, so where I used to live in Michigan.
Oh,
So yeah,
very cool.
it was talk about a somewhat odd pairing looking back. It was Hawthorne Heights, Straight Light Run, and Something Corporate. So yeah,
Yeah,
Straight Light
that's
Run was
cool.
definitely like the lighter of the three, but yeah,
Yeah,
it was a good lineup. Looking back, I was like, man, I
I know.
wish that tour would happen again.
Yeah, there's a couple of very unknown towns outside of Roanoke, and Hawthorne Heights just like came through one of these unknown towns recently, and like
Okay.
did a show, and I was like, oh, and then like shortly after, like Everclear came through the same place, and I was like, okay, there's like this like real, older underground kind of
Hmm.
thing happening here. So I've been keeping my eye on that a little bit,
So
but
maybe there's a venue where that the person who books bands is like, hey, let's get some nationally known acts in here or something.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not a big
trying
place,
to
but
make it a thing.
it's probably a stop along the way.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh yeah, yeah. Maybe it's like a good stop along the highway in between two other major cities. That would make
Yep.
sense.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get on to the songwriting here. So I mentioned earlier there's a little bit of information about Andrew, where Andrew's talking about the song. There's an Absolute Punk interview. It's a very brief, like minute and a half long video you can watch on YouTube. I'll post the link. But Andrew said this song was written about the dark side of matrimony, about how when you marry someone, you acquire someone as your responsibility. You kind of steal them away from their life. Now, guys, I've been married for over 16 years, so I can understand how you go, absolutely go from being an individual to part of a couple, right? That's in any relationship, whether you're married or not, that's just kind of expected. You're an individual, but you're also part of a unit now. And with that, you try to retain your individuality. But also, what happens is you tend to take on certain qualities of your partner's lifestyle, or you kind of evolve with who you're with to accommodate your partner or whatever. And my wife and I have both done that. That's just expected. I'm not sure if that's what he's getting into here or getting at here. But do you guys have any opinions on that? I mean, it's just a kind of it's not what I would think the song was about on the surface level with some of these lyrics. But I guess, the dark side of matrimony or that kind of like taking on, I think what he said was like taking someone away from their life to kind of become part of your own.
Well, we kind of got to that a little bit. We were talking about it without listening to what Andrew had said.
Hmm.
And Phil and I had very varying opinions about like what was actually happening. And then we kind of landed in the same spot. But
Okay.
Phil, I kind of want you to open up with your original impression.
Okay. You know what? I've listened to this song like a ton of times the past week,
Hmm.
and so many times I've listened to it and I've changed my mind about what I think it's about. I do think that it's kind of like this parallel of a new marriage and like all these emotions kind of wrapped up, right? Like it seems like each verse there's like kind of like this dark part and then there's this happy part.
Hmm.
And some of it seems like fantasy and then some of it seems like reality. I think that's where he's getting that, and I can kind of see it a little bit like as far as a marriage and that, and like I think people are playing certain roles and accommodating certain things and learning a lot about each other. I know like when I got married that it was a big learning experience, and we had been together for a very long time. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's kind of my take on it, just as far as the meaning behind it. But there was one other thing that popped in my head as far as the meaning of it, and I kind of feel like it's almost like this childish like love type of story where someone experiences something and I don't know why it just kind of came to my head like being on a playground and like there's a girl you like and
Hmm.
you did something and so you go to talk to her and then you have like maybe a negative experience from that, but then you walk away from that and you're just like imagining well one day we're going to get married and we're going to live in a mansion, or one day we're going to go to the beach and everything will be fine, and like it's just like this little kid on the playground like thinking of these like reality versus fantasy. And that,
Fantasizing, yeah. I
yeah, fantasizing. So like the first part of the of each verse is this like little taste of reality, and then the second part is like overcoming that negative part of the reality with a fantasy.
hmm Yeah.
Yeah, making up like a positive, and then the chorus is all about this California and I feel like idolizing somebody.
Yeah, stealing her away and idolizing her and he's gonna have her only for himself. Kind of, yeah, kind of. And I definitely agree with you. It feels like part reality, part fantasy. Like this isn't really real, but this is kind of what your inner thoughts are sometimes.
there's obviously the struggle, right, that he's admiring this girl, and he has this idea of what they should be and who they should be, and at first it's almost like he's scheming a little bit, and then in the second verse he kind of talks about how like maybe he shot his shot, it didn't really work out, he ended up hurting her, but that he's going to keep going, and at
Hmm.
the end, he even says, Miss California, like I'll be around, kind of just being like, I'm going to be here when
Hmm.
you're ready, type of thing. But what intrigues me, I think, the most is this idea of the mention of Jesus and the religion, and almost why, right? Like,
Hmm.
so I almost kind of feel like it's just this point in whether it's Andrew's life or whoever's life where it's like, you've maybe explored religion and it's not really, connecting with you the way that it should, whether that's in general or at that point in your life. And you need to fill this void with, and you're gonna try to find someone that you love. So clearly, whatever this individual is maybe grappling with is, I see it as like he called on Jesus. He's not really getting answers from that.
Right.
So he's kind of looking to love to fill whatever hole is there. And that's sometimes not super easy to do when you have this specific individual in mind, if that makes sense.
It's interesting that you bring up the religious aspect that he mentions in the very first line of the song, because he doesn't mention religion a whole lot, but it's kind of like a cynical take on religion right from the get go. I called Jesus, but he didn't check his phone today, and then he starts talking about the girl. Like so,
Yeah, in
he's like, oh, that's just a side note. Like I'll move on to the girl now.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, almost like, all right, like I did it
Yeah,
and it didn't work out. Now I'm going on
yeah,
again,
I'm
and
moving on. Yeah.
yeah, I'm moving on. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting take. Yeah, for sure. I mentioned this earlier. I'll just kind of come back to the this point I made, and that's and it feels like we might be talking similarly, but I'd be curious to hear your opinions here. It feels like a fictional character. It doesn't feel like he's talking about his actual wife. I might be wrong. I'm just making my own meanings of this. In that video, that minute and a half video I referenced earlier that I'll drop in the links, he didn't say a whole lot about what the song's about. I'll be honest. The video, what he says in the video doesn't say a whole lot. What he does say is, I kind of want everybody to make their own meaning from it. He doesn't really want to say exactly what the lyrics mean, which is completely fair as an artist, by the way.
Yeah.
And I don't usually expect that out of a lyricist. In fact, I usually appreciate that because then I can make my own meaning, like I'm doing right now, of what this could be. But yeah, I'm obviously not suggesting that, again, fantasy, something not real. I'm not suggesting that he's kidnapping a woman in the chorus or, stealing her away literally. I think it's more figurative, but I also think it's more like fiction, fantasy. Like, Phil, I like that playground analogy you made earlier. Like, this isn't really the way things work, but maybe in my childlike mind at this moment, this is what I perceive things to be.
Mhm.
When we were talking, the term like, is he kidnapping somebody? It came up
Yeah,
because before we hopped on here, and it was like, huh, like he's written songs like Me and the Moon, where that's, and he's openly talked about like how like that's just like a fantasy song, but it's a kind of messed up, and
yeah,
he does go there sometimes. So
yeah.
I think that that's totally valid.
A lot of his lyrics incorporate fictional stories. I mean, he's referenced, Me and the Moon, you just brought up, but also Canyon Moon. I didn't mean to make two moon references in a row, but that was something I was thinking about too. Is Canyon Moon was another one about a woman going off into the desert, what that would be like, things like that. So Miss California, I think, could fall in line with that. But I think again, and we've referenced this a little bit. I think there are pieces of some of the words he's using, that the pieces of the song that are maybe pulled from his own emotions to kind of
Mhm.
create this painting or this picture, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to get into lyrics, but first, before we do that, let's talk about the sound of the song. I really appreciated what you guys said at the top of the episode when I asked you, why this song. You guys had some great, ways of describing the sounds in this song. Here's one of my theories. I'm going to come back to something Chris said earlier. I think, Chris, that you were the one to say this earlier. You said you weren't sure if this was the last track or the first track, or was that Phil that said that?
That was
Oh,
Phil.
that was me. Yeah.
Okay. I have a theory on why that is. And I think this song sounds like Spinning, which is, I think, track 2, if I'm not mistaken.
It does. It definitely sounds like Spinning, and I think that's why I thought I saw this song
Hmm.
live because they've played Spinning almost every single time I've seen them.
Yeah, that lines up.
Following this album, obviously, that coming out, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I thought I really heard this, and I was getting those songs confused, especially even just parts in the middle of the song. I would get kind of lost and be like, I don't know which song this is anymore.
Hmm. I do that with, oddly, these ones don't sound nearly as much alike, but I do that with Crashin' and Spinning, and I think it's the names and the fact that they're right
Yeah.
next to each other in the track list.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I've gotten those confused for years. But yeah, I think the guitar tones in this song, Miss California, remind me so much of Spinning. There's a lot that isn't like Spinning, but there's a few things that are. I do wonder if they had to like separate those two from the track list or something. I don't know, because they had a similar sound. And what I'm saying is ironic because I typically like an album to sound similar. So I'm not complaining here. Like I like there to be a flow to an album and a similar sound.
Yeah, of course.
And what's funny is that the Glass Passenger, I feel like, kind of breaks that rule for me. So many of the songs sound so different from one another. But again, these two songs do sound like they fit together. I think it's I wrote this down in my notes, like the beat of the verses maybe, similar to Spinning, as well as that guitar sound, that guitar riff that kind of leads into the pre-chorus. Another thought I had about the sound of it, though, is that I also kind of, and maybe I could say the same about Spinning if I put more thought into it, I almost kind of feel like that the bright, shiny sound of it also kind of reminds me of Everything in Transit more than the Glass Passenger. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I definitely agree. I actually called up Phil like earlier this weekend. I thought it was on Everything in Transit
Yeah.
because it does have that.
Mm-hmm.
It just has that like I don't know. Obviously, Glass Passenger is a lot more emotional than Everything in Transit,
Yeah.
and Everything in Transit brings like almost that fun element to some of the sound. Whereas I feel like there's so much more intention in some of the Glass Passenger, and maybe intention is not the right word, but to me, it's almost like an end cap between like Holiday from Real, if that was going to be the first song on the album. It
Mm.
sounds a little bit more in that realm to me.
Yeah.
So I definitely get what you mean.
We've referenced a few lyrics so far, but are there any lyrics that kind of jump out to either of you? Any ones that I know, but Chris, it sounds like you write lyrics. I don't know, Phil, if you've written any lyrics yourself, but like, are you guys lyrics guys in general when you listen to music?
Yeah.
Yes.
I am definitely a lyrics person as well.
Nice. Nice.
I always look for them, try to make my own meaning out of them, that sort of thing. And it can make or break a song for me too. I'll say off the bat, I like these lyrics. I do. I think they're an interesting read through. And to be honest, this is another one of those Andrew McMahon songs that, as I'm preparing for this episode, I didn't realize how unfamiliar I was with these lyrics until I read through them. And I'm like, oh,
Yes.
okay. I didn't know he was singing that there.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting little gems in here. So I'll let you guys start. Is there anything that jumps out at you guys that make you appreciate the song from a lyrical standpoint?
Well, I just want to kind of continue your initial reaction because I think that we kind of felt the same thinking about like what the lyrics were. And I think Andrew has so many themes,
Uh-huh.
right? And I feel like this has so many of that in there. Like like if we take a look at like the mention of cell phone tower and broken down transmission, and he always brings up these like radio wave connections. And I just feel like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like at a song like this, after you're have followed someone for so many albums and he brings a lot of these themes back, you're almost just like, oh, this is like same old Andrew. Like we're just having a good time and we're
Yeah.
singing these lyrics, and it's like, yeah, transmissions, like cell phone tower, like I don't know. I think that's kind of why, because it was so like on brand for him, and like I just feel like I've heard him talk about misconnections in the form of radio signals or something like that in so many songs,
Mm-hmm.
and it's definitely very much an Andrew song, but I didn't really dig too much into it just because it's so like feel good, and there is a deeper meaning to it, I think, when you actually listen to the lyrics.
Yeah, there's definitely some lyrics I can kind of glaze over, especially in the chorus, but The lyrics I found fascinating were in the verses, and you mentioned one of them. So it's a lonely hour in my cell phone tower, broken down transmission. It definitely harkens back to reading it aloud. Definitely makes me think of Island Radio, which is obviously a newer
Yeah.
song of his. But yet, mentioning the mentions of summer and the beach. Phil, I think you referenced that earlier when you said, kind of fantasizing about, taking a girl off to the beach and having a good time, things like that. I guess I didn't realize that he mentions calling Jesus twice in the song. He meant that's the first line of the first verse and the first line of the second verse. I called Jesus, but he heard I hurt his little girl. So maybe a little bit of guilt there. That's my best interpretation of
Yeah.
whatever that's worth. But yeah, it's funny you bring that up, Chris. That whole like the themes around Andrew McMahon. A line that also jumped out at me is like I thought I saw straw dog in here for a moment, but I was like, oh, I'm just a
Yeah.
stray dog now. I'm a stray dog.
Yes.
But I thought which one has nothing to do with the other. By the way, though it's just the word dog. But it just kind of jumped out at me when I saw it on paper. So I
Yeah,
never would have thought
absolutely.
that listening to it though. Never would have made that. There's no connection to be made, but I never would have made that connection.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing I think the part of this song I don't really like is there's kind of like a heavier bridge after I think the second chorus, and I don't know if it's the way he sings it or something, but I don't know. But yeah, he kind of sings that chorus a couple more times toward the end. So there's not a whole lot more other than the chorus and the two verses. But I don't know anything else within the lyrics that you guys wanna pull out of there.
It just seems like in some, especially like lonely hour, my cell phone tower, and thing. I think whenever he talks about these like transmissions and radio waves and things like that, that it's kind of just like a symbolism for a miscommunication.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that like comes from a movie or something like that. That maybe there's a movie or something that he like really likes, that you know someone's on a boat and they can't call ashore or something, and there's something missed and it's like a terrible thing, and so it's just like this analogy for that. Yeah, it just seems like it's just two situations, and both of them just like kind of didn't work out, but like, oh, in the end it's going to be great.
Yeah.
I have two. I think I see more of like the heart on the sleeve perspective on this one. Like I think as dark as it can sound, and as I don't know, I think it's just being like lovesick, right? Like when they can't find you, like you'll turn into a mystery, but you're no mystery to me. And I see that just as like two people who are ready just to truly commit to each other. When you do that, you lose connection with so many other folks, and
Hmm.
they do lose a sense of you, and you become an open book to us to another person. So I love that. Like it's just like he's like people are gonna know you less, but I'm gonna know almost everything about you, and I don't know. I love that. I think that that's just so optimistic. And I know that it's kind of like this fantasy, but I don't know. I feel like there among all of the immaturity sounds in this song, in terms of like his approach of fantasizing with this girl, it just sounds like someone who's just like, I am just ready to like settle down with you and do this thing. There's like this very mature tone in that line to me. And then again, I'll be around is the next part. Like I just love it's just kind of like of everything going on. I've talked to Jesus and I've talked to you and I've hurt you and all this stuff. You know what? Like I'll be around, like, and we're gonna figure this out type of thing, and call me when you need me type of thing. I don't know. That's kind of what I take from it.
Well, shoot, I gotta say, I much prefer that interpretation than some people's that I've heard on this one. That's a very positive outlook there, but I do like it, and I can not only appreciate it, but believe it too. When you read those lines and you said what you said, Chris, I'm like, yeah, I mean that could when they can't find you, you'll turn into a mystery. It might be a little deeper than the way I've been reading it and the way maybe some other fans read it, in that it's not literally she's disappearing, they can't find her or any evidence of her, but maybe that she's become something I referenced earlier. I'll come back to, like, part of a unit now. She's part of this relationship. She's still an individual, but they
Yeah.
won't. Maybe some people won't recognize her anymore. She's a mystery now. And the reason I understood that better is what you said next, and that's I'll understand you more than anyone else, and I'll know. So you're no mystery to me, Miss
Yeah.
California. So that, yeah, that's a really cool interpretation. I didn't think about it that way at all. if you want to equate it to his marriage to Kelly, completely. I definitely hear their coming back together story. Again, I mentioned a little bit of guilt maybe in that line about I called Jesus, but he heard I hurt his little girl. Maybe a little bit of guilt there about how he left things with her before the breakup or during the breakup, about not being the best boyfriend, fiance, or husband he could be. Maybe there's guilt about him not being
Yeah.
as good as he thinks he should be. I can definitely identify with that as a husband. I
Yeah.
think I could always do better. I always get a little bit something out of these conversations, and I appreciate that. And then when I go back and listen to these songs, it's like, oh, I'm hearing something different now after I've talked to some people about it.
I always thought the call on Jesus part was more of like almost like someone who like calls a sponsor or like someone who calls a friend who they can lean on for something. And so
Hmm.
like, oh, I called my friend to ask him this question and he didn't pick up his phone. And then in another situation he like finds out like, oh, I don't agree with what you did.
Yeah.
And and
Oh,
so now I don't have that person to lean on anymore. Like I not only did I hurt the person that I didn't want to hurt, but my friend doesn't agree with what I did.
so Jesus is a symbol for the one who helps him, whether it be a friend or a family member or just somebody who's there for him.
Yeah, someone he leans on, someone he calls on for advice or something like that.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it that way. That's very interesting. It could more symbolic than actual religion, maybe. Do you guys have a favorite part of the song, or like something, or the part of the thing about this song that really jumps out to you? I think you guys may have mentioned it earlier in the episode, but and it might be the same answer. That's okay. But what's like the one thing that you love most about this song?
I really love that big like post second chorus. Just
Hmm.
it's just like really big and like we kind of said how the album it's like oh we came off that mountain and now we're going back up. It's like this song just keeps going up all the way to the end and it's just like this big like I don't know that he's like just screaming Miss California from the top of like a cliff or something. It's like the song has no like up and down. It's just all up.
Hmm. Just a build to the end. Yeah,
Yeah, it just keeps building.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that.
I think that's probably my favorite part as well.
That
I don't
big
know. I
chorus.
Yeah, this like right where it goes like after that second chorus and just all slows down is like and then he goes a little lower and you'll be Miss California and then yeah, it gets big. It has like the bells in the background, I think.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I don't know actually know what it is about it. 'Cause it sounds just kind of simple and it's just like these he's just saying Miss California. It's just I don't know. It's just a good way to me it just puts me in a good mood,
yeah.
honestly.
The piece I like is a very short piece that I could see some people not noticing. I really like the build into the chorus. I think it's more noticeable maybe into the first chorus, but I think it's similar into the second chorus. During the pre-chorus, it's not necessarily the lyrics, but the music building into it, and then Bobby does, presumably because he's on guitar, does this like chugga chugga chugga, like leading
Mm.
right into the chorus. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It leading in. I'm not doing it properly, but
I think I remember that, but I also remember in another song him doing something similar to that.
yeah.
Yes, I do know that there was something I picked up on that was yeah right
Yeah.
before that chorus.
And I gotta know, I gotta point out that in the live version that I listened to from the soundcheck in Pittsburgh this year, it wasn't missing, but it wasn't as pronounced, that piece. And so I was kind of
Mm.
waiting for it. That's what I was really looking forward to. That's like the punch part for me of this song. So I was kind of waiting for it, and it didn't
Yeah.
hit as hard as I expected it to.
All right. No, that's cool.
Thank you guys so much for joining me. Any final thoughts about the song before we kind of wrap up here? Anything that we missed? Anything we didn't cover? I don't have as much of a history with this song, so I'm always curious to hear from I gave the example of Out of It earlier, and there's a song called Last Straw Arizona I would have felt similarly about. It's like I didn't have the context and the history and the deep connection with it. So it's nice to bring people in that have maybe more of that history or deep connection with these songs to kind of tell me about them. But I definitely appreciated it more as I prepped for this episode, and definitely talking to you guys about it.
Yeah, no, this was definitely a lot of fun, and it's funny you mentioned Last Straw because some of the bonus tracks like that's like one of my favorite songs of
Hmm.
like all time. So, some of them just I don't know, especially for a bonus track. I was just very surprised that that one kind of came through, and I guess this is like quote unquote a bonus track, but yeah,
Yeah. Lester, Arizona. I'm surprised he started playing that more often. He played it on the Holiday from Real Cruise last fall, and I'm almost
Okay.
positive he played it in Pittsburgh where I saw them in July in June. So, yeah, I feel like that one's coming back around. Whereas during the wilderness years, I don't feel like that was a thing that they would do.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like you're right, and I think I've only seen it maybe once.
I'd probably never seen it live before last fall. Again, I believe I've seen it twice now. So thank you guys again for joining the show. So where do you guys stand in term like creatively as musicians? Do you guys still play individually? Do you still play together? Where does that all land? I know the quote unquote the band, right, is not officially together anymore. You guys have gone your separate ways. You live in different states and things. You have families and like where does that put you guys creatively on your own now?
Phil, you want to go first or me?
I guess I can go. I play on my own, pretty much solely on my own, and just try to get better at guitar. And I'm, experimenting with different genres and things like that.
Uh huh.
I don't play really with anybody. Sometimes, Chris and I are visiting with each other, and we might like pop into an open mic somewhere. We've done that once or twice.
That's
But
cool.
for me, creatively, I mean, that is about it. We did used to split the writing duties a lot when we were in the band. I mean, it was almost. I mean, Chris wrote more of the lyrics, but as far as like music and a lot of it was kind of 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And I kind of felt like once I found myself, like once I figured out like who I was, that whole like lyric writing process became much more difficult. Like I felt like writing
Oh.
lyrics was very much about finding yourself and like
Hmm.
putting your feelings into something, or there was something that you was bugging you and you just couldn't get over it, and or you didn't I didn't know how to just say it. And so it went to a song. And now I don't ever really feel that situation a whole lot.
Okay. Interesting.
So I feel like writing lyrics has been challenging. But I mean, I do write some instrumental things and riffs and things like that, and record them and save them, and that's kind of about it
Yeah.
as far as that goes. And
It sounds like you're still passionate about playing, and that's important. So, how about you, Chris? Are you still doing any playing or?
I'm getting my way back into it. So after I went to school for music because kind of because of Andrew, right? And I
Oh,
wanted to make the band work, and and if that didn't work out, I wanted to get into music. And after college, I did do a little bit of writing under just like my own name, Chris Adcock, one word, and I do have an EP that is also on Spotify.
oh, cool.
It was very different though because I didn't have a band to back me, so I actually collaborated with a very talented like DJ at the time who could make his own sounds, and he also played guitar and stuff like that. And I had a couple friends who hopped on, and actually a couple just local musicians, one of which is now like a pop star in Greece.
Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
so it's super cool for her to see her like have like a full career. I think she's with Columbia or Universal or something. But anyway, I did that, but I did absolutely no promotion of it. So I started playing with an artist named Evie from up in New York when I was living in New Jersey. So I was backing her for a few years, and then now I'm really just kind of doing open mics. I'm getting back into some writing. We had a little reunion last year at a something corporate show with our old band, and
Right on.
we all kind of started talking about ways to kind of maybe do long distance recording and stuff like that and collaborations. So I think it's so tough to find those types of connections with those people. And I've talked to some local musicians around the area, but it's so tough to kind of reinvent what we had, and anything that I do now is totally accredited to that. So, but other than that, I mean, I work at a brewery as well, and I'm gearing up to do a show there.
Oh, that's
And
cool. You play the key? Do you take a keyboard out there then? So that when you play open mics and play shows?
yeah, so the I know that the I know we're not recording video, but the one behind me is like 6 pounds. So when I was not touring, I was doing when I was gigging in New York behind that artist Evie, I was taking this like 60-pound keyboard into these very small nightclubs.
Uh huh.
And I had had enough of it, so I picked this one up, and it's like 7 pounds, and it's
Wow.
fantastic.
I
Yeah,
thought
it's
that's what you
great.
said. You said 6, 7 pounds. Like that seems incredible. I didn't know they make them that light, actually.
Yeah, I mean it's not like weighted, I guess, but it's yeah, it's a workstation keyboard and it was perfect and so that's what I use for the time being. Eventually I'll need to get an actual keyboard down the road. But
Yeah,
yeah, I've been getting back into it, kind
Cool.
of how Phil said he's working on the guitar stuff. I'm pushing on some of the other stuff and I have some ideas for how we could collab in the future further, but for now we're still figuring it out.
okay. Yeah, you mentioned the reunion, so to speak. The five, was it, is it five of you in For Normandy?
It actually was originally four and then it became five, yeah.
Okay. And you guys all met up in Jersey for the Something Corporate show, is that right?
Correct, yeah, in Asbury
Yes.
Park.
That's
Yep.
that's awesome. That's so cool that you guys came back together. So do you see a future in potentially like sending each other ideas for songs? Like I know Phil, you said you've put together some riffs, and Chris, you're writing songs and performing out songs. So like, could you guys see putting some of that together in the future? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think ultimately, I think we never really had like a like this is the end of
Mm-hmm.
us type of thing.
Yeah.
It kind of just all of a sudden everybody took their stuff out of the practice space and it was just like gone and Phil moved to Florida. Um,
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
I will say that when Andrew McMahon decided that he was going to go solo and start the Wilderness Project, and I think for us, it kind of like, I mean, we butted heads a little bit, but it wasn't like a lot. We thought that like our window had closed when that happened.
Okay.
And also, very shortly after that, the management company that was helping us out, they went under. The label that was helping us out, they went under.
Mm.
All those bands that we knew from them, they all disappeared. And so we all kind of worked on a couple little projects. I mean, Chris had way more of a project than I. I mean, I went and played in a like bar band with some college buddies for a little bit, like right before I moved.
Mm-hmm.
But it almost seemed like, once something corporate was like announced, like, oh, we're doing a reunion, and then it was like, I bet they're gonna do a Jack's Mannequin reunion. Like it
Uh-huh.
was it just we all started talking to each other again
Mm-hmm.
because of
Hmm.
that. And I don't think we ever had any intentions of like, oh, we're gonna play together again, but it was on everybody's mind.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. That's
yeah.
cool. That's cool how the progression of Andrew's different acts have also inspired you guys to not only start a band back, over a decade ago, but like in the newer era, kind of like talk about the idea again. Like, oh, Andrew's coming back around with his, the things he was doing back when we were originally inspired, and now we're getting re-inspired by it all again. That's so cool to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it was that, but it was also like, the When We Were Young festival and like all these bands, like we were inspired by a lot of different bands too.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
Andrew was obviously like the main one, but we stole ideas from tons and tons of bands
Mm-hmm.
that we really, really liked. And all of a sudden, they're all playing together again. And it was just like,
Yeah.
it just got us talking about music again when I feel like we hadn't talked about it
Yeah.
in 12 years.
Yeah, it does seem like the era for rediscovering what we used to be. So
Yeah, I'm here
Yeah.
for it.
yeah, I am too.
Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it.
Well, thank you guys so much again. And all of you listening, as always, reach out to me at somethinginthewilderness@gmail.com, or best way to get a hold of me is to message me on Instagram if you want to chat about music anytime. As you can see, hopefully it's evident in these recordings that I just love doing this. So I mentioned earlier, guys, that I've checked out your stuff on the For Normandy stuff on streaming. So I just want to put in a plug. I think everybody should go check that out. There's 5 tracks by For Normandy out on Spotify. Check it out. And then and I didn't know this until we started talking. But Chris, you said your stuff is listed under what out on Spotify?
Yeah, so it's Chris Adcock, one word, but the EP is called The Project EP.
The Project EP. Okay, by Chris Adcock. I will check that out too. So thank you so much for sharing that.